Welcome, football fans, far and wide, to another edition of IDP Plus Bets. More specifically, the NFL Offensive Props Show. That is right. I'm your host, the Degen Doc, and today is a special day. Recording this on the 6th of August, we are about 30 days out from NFL kickoff, and it is time we kick off our series here with NFL division previews, looking at the best bets, the 4 best player prop bets for each division. And today we are talking about none other than the NFC South. That is right. We're going to talk about, I'm going to lay out 4 of my favorite bets for this division. The NFC South, a division that is pretty wide open at this point. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won it last year. Atlanta Falcons come into the season with some new off-season additions. They're coming in as the favorite right now. But it's a division that's pretty wide open. There's no clear-cut favorite. You got 4 teams that all realistically have a shot at the division. So I think this makes it a fun division, and it's one that we can go ahead and make some cash on, folks. So again, we are 30 days out from NFL kickoff. Cheers to you. Let's talk some football. I'm going to start off with my first bet of the day, and we're going to head over to Carolina to talk about a rookie. And that is right, the rookie running back there in Jonathan Brooks, their second-round pick out of the University of Texas here. Now, unfortunately, rookie running backs, we talk about getting back into the speed of things, really adjusting to the speed of the NFL, and that is when they're healthy. And unfortunately, Jonathan Brooks is not healthy right now, which is why I'm going to take him as under 4.5 rushing touchdowns at -110. That is the bet, and here is why. So we talked about he tore his ACL at the University of Texas, later in the year in November, to the point where he's only going to have 10 months of recovery time from point of injury until week 1. ACL tear your anterior cruciate ligament, major stabilizing ligament in the knee. When you fully tear it, requires season-ending surgery like he had, and about expected 10 to 12-month recovery timeline. Now, want to be closer to, obviously, that 12-month mark where guys can start getting back onto the field. Research does show, however, just because they're back on the field does not mean they're 100% or close to where they were pre-injury. In fact, research shows that typically it can take up to 2 years for guys to feel like they're moving normal again, back to their pre-injury levels. We see some, they see this all the time, especially in running backs. Breece Hall actually just said himself he finally feels healthy this offseason, 2 years off his ACL. So you got a rookie running back coming in with an ACL tear, right? So he's already starting on the pup in this situation where, at least in training camp, he's not getting those reps that you would need. And ACL, as much as it is a physical injury to come back from, it is also a mental injury. You have to relearn how to walk. You have to relearn how to trust your knee. The last time that Jonathan Brooks made a real cut, his knee gave out on him. He tore his ACL, right? So there's that mental aspect. And the last thing you want to do, especially as a rookie running back, is be thinking too much when you're in the backfield. And I think it's going to be hard for Jonathan Brooks and really anybody, especially a rookie running back coming off an ACL tear, to come in and immediately be the guy and get back to what he was doing at Texas. Now, I do want to say, this is not a condemnation or, anything bad on Jonathan Brooks for his career and his future potential outlook and things like that. I do think that Jonathan Brooks will be one of the best running backs in this draft class. What he did at the University of Texas, in his 1 year, he was able to prove some things. He looked really dynamic. I just don't want to be betting on him on that year 1 after the ACL. Now, not only is it the injury concerns, he's also went to a bad team in the Carolina Panthers. In fact, this team was so bad that they only had 7 rushing touchdowns all season last year. 7 rushing touchdowns all season. That is incredibly bad. I do not think that a guy who's not going to come in and immediately be the RB1 is going to get over that 4.5 mark. You also have some competition here. You've got, Miles Sanders kind of falling off, but Chuba Hubbard, he had over 230 carries last year. He was kind of their workhorse, right around 1,000 yards rushing. He was their workhorse. He was able to carry the load for them. I do not expect the Panthers to just kind of toss those guys to the side. I think, Dave Canales has said week 1 is pretty unrealistic for the running back, maybe week 3, week 4. But I think even week 3, week 4, he comes back and is very limited. I would not expect him to be getting a lot of carries until closer to the midseason mark or after. And again, that's if he's fully healthy, if he's looking good. And that's if all of a sudden they decide to just go with Jonathan Brooks as being their only running back number one. I personally like Chuba Hubbard in fantasy. I think he's someone who's being undervalued. I understand that Jonathan Brooks may be a better running back than Chuba Hubbard when fully healthy, but that's not the case. That's not the situation we're dealing with. So give me Jonathan Brooks under 4.5 rushing touchdowns at -110. We're now heading over we're heading over to New Orleans, down to NOLA there. And we are talking about another rookie, but on the other side of the ball. And I'm talking about cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. Again, I'm going to be fading a rookie here and give me his under 1.5 receptions at +110. So we're still getting a little bit of plus money here for the rookie quarterback. Now, I know what you're thinking because it's initially what I thought. When I saw this bet on the board, I was like, oh, that's an easy over, right? You're talking about Kool-Aid McKinstry, a guy who's been a top elite level cornerback for really going on 3 seasons now at the University of Alabama. I would expect, rookie cornerback, 2 interceptions should be good. They target him, whatever. Well, Kool-Aid McKinstry, in his 3 years at the University of Alabama, playing teams like Mercer and Northwest, East-West, Chicago University, right? He only had 2 career interceptions in his 3 years at the University of Alabama as a starter. Now, look, Kool-Aid McKinstry is one of the better cornerbacks of this draft. He's a great prospect. He may be a great player, but he is just not that ball-hawking type of cornerback. We didn't see it at the college level, so there's no reason to believe he's just going to come into the NFL and rack up the interceptions. Now, not only is it against his play style, is it against his history, but he's not even a listed starter right now on the New Orleans Saints depth chart. They have 2 of the better cornerbacks in the league, not just in the division, in Paulson Adebo and Marshawn Lattimore. He's going to be really hard to get above either of those guys. And then really, maybe he's going to be fighting for some time in the slot against another good cornerback in Alontae Taylor. But right now, his first step is to actually see meaningful snaps on the playing field, right? Never know if it's an injury situation or maybe he just beats these guys out in camps. But I think that's going to take some time as far as the rookie cornerbacks don't always come in and do swell, right? So he may struggle, again, with that game speed. I don't expect him to be a day 1 starter. That's not how things are looking in camp. And then another thing, again, more importantly, 2 career interceptions in 3 seasons at the University of Alabama. Give me the under on cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry, under 1.5 interceptions at +110. I think we're getting a really good value there for that pick. All right. We are halfway through 2 out of the 4 best bets. And before we move on, I want to tell you about some of the awesome things we have going on over here at IDP Plus. So first, this weekend, actually, coming up is the Fantasy Football Expo over in Canton, Ohio. I know you're probably already psyched, got your tickets, but if you needed another reason to come out, or if you're going and want to hang out with us, join us on Saturday, August 10th at the Brew Kettle at the Pro Football Hall of Fame for a drafting extravaganza. For the first time ever, IDP Plus is hosting an IDP League. So be a part of history. Check that out in the link in the show description. Go hang out with the guys over there. Fortunately, I will not be heading out to Fantasy Expo this year. But I know it's going to be a great time. So go ahead and draft. I know if you're listening to this, you're probably an IDP nerd like us. We just talked about defensive prop. So draft with those guys. Speaking of draft, it is draft season. It's prime off season. Again, we got 1 month until the season kicks off. Let me tell you about my friends over at Trophy Smack. Trophy Smack has gorgeous draft boards complete with player stickers so deep you couldn't possibly need them all. And for the first time, Trophy Smack has an IDP expansion pack. Look, we understand there's a select few people who love football in its entirety, offense, defense, special teams. We understand that if you love defense, that means you love real football. Trophy Smack gets us. So check out that link in the show notes in the show description. And then finally, we have an IDP Plus rookie guides breaking down all the rookies coming in on the defensive side of the ball. Plus. So all of the rookies coming in this year, figuring out, hey, how should I use them? Where should I be taking the guys in the draft? It's comprehensive, and it is only $9.99 over at idpplus.com. All right, folks, let's get back to the action. And we are coming in with bet number 3. We're staying in New Orleans, and we're talking about none other than the alpha dog himself in that wide receiver room, Mr. Chris Olave. Give me his over. Finally taking over on the show here. His over 1,025.5 receiving yards for the season. Now, may seem like a high number as far as got to get over 1,000 yards. Not something that's been a struggle for Chris Olave in his career so far. Young career, but he's hit this number in his first 2 seasons pretty handily. And, my biggest point for why I really like this bet is who else is New Orleans going to be throwing the ball to right now? I don't understand, in my head, there's no way that he doesn't get to this number. So Alvin Kamara is probably their best other threat out of the backfield. He's going to take away a couple targets, some targets, but again, I can't see him really having a huge amount of target share. You've got Chris Olave as the number 1 dynamic wide receiver, and then you got Raheed Shaheed, A.T. Perry, and potentially Juwan Johnson, Taysom Hill, one of those combinations, right? Again, Kamara, we can make an argument for. Yeah, he's a dynamic player. He's a threat out of the backfield. But what other wide receiver is Derek Carr going to go to? Chris Olave was targeted an astounding 138 times last season. 138 times. That was 52 more targets than any other Saint last season. Last season they had Michael Thomas, who's, I'm not a huge fan of at this point in his career, but people would argue he might be better than Rashid Shaheed. He's probably better than A.T. Perry at this point. So, I don't see any way where the Saints have any success at all on offense unless they are feeding Chris Olave the ball. He's a dynamic wide receiver. I think he's worked himself up into, squarely the top 10, 15 wide receivers in the league. So I love Chris Olave here to be hitting the over 1,025.5 receiving yards. I think Derek Carr is just going to feed him early and often. All right, folks, the last bet on the card, the last bet of the day, and we are heading down to sunny Tampa Bay. And surprise, surprise, we are taking another under, folks. We're going with not a rookie, not a young guy who's been around for a couple years here. Wide receiver Chris Godwin, under 4.5 receiving touchdowns. Do have to pay a little juice here at minus 135. Now, 3 unders on the card. Don't be so surprised there, right? Because when you just think about this real quick, I'll hit on this. When you're taking these player props, you do have to take into considerations any type of injury or, any type of benching, this or that, right? There's a lot more kind of worst case scenarios than best case scenarios, specifically with the injury thing that we can't, it's really hard to predict injuries, right? So that does get baked in a little bit with where you typically see unders pay out a little bit more often than overs. Now, Chris Godwin, obviously not just hoping on a, sending out a prayer that somehow he gets hurt. I do not wish injury on anyone. I am bent on this under because this is something that he's not a red zone threat. Chris Godwin is not a consistent red zone threat. He is a really good wide receiver. I mean, let's look at just last year, right? So last year he had a great year. He had over 1,000 yards. However, he only had 2 receiving touchdowns in a great year, right? Nothing wrong with the year. If he could reproduce it another year later, I think that'd be great. The Bucs would love that. And it's not like this was a weird kind of year where, hey, maybe they just didn't have a lot of passing touchdowns. Under offense coordinator Dave Canales, who has now moved on to Carolina, Baker Mayfield had a career year. He had the most passing touchdowns in his career with 28. And Chris Godwin only got 2, right? You got Mike Evans taking a lot of those touchdowns as he's just a touchdown machine on the other side. You got K-Dot in that tight end. You've got, Rashad White out of the backfield. Chris Godwin's frankly the 4th or 5th option in the red zone for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. And this has kind of been proven. In the last 3 seasons, despite having over 1,000 receiving yards each season, he's only had 10 touchdowns in 3 years, right? So that's not going to get you to this number of, him needing to get to 5. So this is not really a fade on Chris Godwin. I think he can have a fine year, even though he's getting a little bit older. But you got a new offensive coordinator coming in. how's that going to affect Baker's? Again, Baker just had a career year where he had the most pass touchdowns he ever had, and Godwin only got 2. I don't see a lot of situations where Chris Godwin is getting to that 5 touchdown mark. Mike Evans is just an absolute touchdown machine. It's been well documented. So really, I love this Chris Godwin under 4.5 receiving touchdowns, even though you do have to pay the juice there at -135. All right, folks, we have done it. We have hit our 4 best bets for the NFC South, 3 unders and an over. I'm going to quickly do a recap, and then we're going to get out of here, folks. So I took running back Jonathan Brooks under 4.5 rushing touchdowns, -110. Cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry under 1.5 interceptions at +110. Chris Olave over 1,025.5 receiving yards at -110. And then wide receiver Chris Godwin under 4.5 receiving touchdowns at -135. All right. This is just the beginning. Like I said, this is number 1 of a series where I'm going through each division, giving you my 4 best bets because it's time to cash. NFL offseason, we're getting close to real football, right? We had the Hall of Fame game last week. We are 30 days away from the first real game of football being played. Perfect time to get into fantasy and perfect time to find some value in the betting markets. All right, folks, over from IDP Plus Bets, I am the Degen Doc, and it's time for me to get up on out of here.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.